Hi, Singapore International MUN. My name is Claire Charmnac, and 15 years ago, I was sitting right where you were as the first Deputy Secretary General of Singapore International MUN. It was my second MUN. In my first one, I was voted most shy delegate, so I could only go up from there. But really, the second MUN that I attended, this MUN, was a turning point for me because it was at that moment that I realized that I could lead. And more importantly, it's when I realized that young people can and should be debating and solving the issues that we face around the world. It was the first step in my international career. From there, I studied international relations at university, and I've been working on food security, nutrition, and gender equality since then in countries like Madagascar, Nepal, and now East Timor, where I am. I know this is just the beginning for all of your leadership journeys as future statesmen and stateswomen. And consider MUN as your trial arena where you can fight it out and battle it out in preparation for all the many amazing fights you're going to have for justice and for peace. The world needs you and your ideas, and I'm excited to hear them when you come out into the world. So good luck, and most importantly, have fun.
Good morning, students, teachers, guests, and especially Colin. I was very pleased and very touched that you sent me that message asking me to talk about the first SIMUN and how it all started all those years ago. And I was thrilled to see that SIMUN has prospered, has grown over the years under your leadership and Colin Sellar's leadership. And it's very heartwarming. To answer your question, it started when I arrived in 2003 in Singapore. I had, with my students, I was a teacher then, I had gone to the East African MUN in Nairobi. I'd enjoyed it tremendously. And when I arrived in Singapore, I looked around to see if there was a conference that my students could attend. And I realized there was no MUN conference at the time in Singapore. So I wrote to the coordinator of the East African MUN and asked if he could tell me how to start, how to run a conference, what was there to do, how to prepare it. So he sent me whatever he had, and I called a meeting. I invited all the international schools, the junior colleges in Singapore, and suggested that perhaps there was need for such a conference in Singapore. 4th of November 2004, 8 people turned up, a German school, St. Andrew's Junior College, Tanglin School, Overseas Family School, and ISS. So I explained what MUN was about. Only one teacher had heard of it when she was a student. Well, she participated when she was a student. The others didn't know, but they liked the idea, and we decided that we were going to start the Singapore International Model UN a few months away from there. We met many times that year because none of us had ever done this sort of thing before, and we pulled it off. We had our first conference on March 2005 with a few more schools that had joined in between, like Anglo-Chinese Junior College, the Australian International School, the Canadian International School, Raffles Junior College, UWC, and Victoria Junior College. I'm sure most of these teachers have moved on now and have done different parts of the world, but I'm still very grateful to that first team. We had fun. We became very close, especially I remember some people like Caroline from the Australian School, Leah from the Canadian International School, Gyok Peng and Sumita from Anglo-Chinese, Derek from St. Andrews Junior College, and Julie from UWC. At LFS, there was a lot of support, and I'd like to remember some people who were there. Some people are still around, and I hope they can hear this. Pierre Mondoloni was the then headmaster, and he didn't know anything about it, but he liked the idea, and he gave it all his support. Maxime Pilon, who I think still teaches in Singapore, who was really my right-hand man that first year, and we pulled it off together. Karun, who made sure it all happened, that everything was set up to the last detail. And my wife and colleague, Marianne, who didn't know much about MUN, but she got into it and started the Simon Says, the conference newspaper, which lives on too. First team of chairs also had a hard task. None of them had ever been delegates or chairs before. They went through the training, which we organized with Britta Meinke-Breinmeier from the German school, who had worked at the UN and sort of got a good idea of how we could train the chairs. We had a brilliant pair of Secretary General Maurice Farran from the Australian school and Claire Charmnac from LFS, who loved it, did a brilliant job, and moved on in different parts of the world since then. I left in 2009. We just finished the 5th conference, and Colin Sellar took over and moved on. And wherever I've been since then, I've started sister conferences to SIMUN, which now has an extended family of conferences in various parts of the world, with the latest being the Palma Model United Nations, which we set up here a few weeks ago, and which you're welcome to join. It's run in French and in English, and seems to be heading for a great future. I wish you all the best for this 15th conference. Teachers, I know how hard this is and how hard you've worked, but I think you'll enjoy the results. Students, same. It's demanding, it's a challenge for you, but make the most of it. Make that first point of information on the first day, and then you'll move on from there. And I'm sure you'll love the experience. And well, thank you all of you, Colin in particular, for making this possible. And thank you for remembering those early days. Long live SIMUN.
Good morning and greetings from sunny Scotland. Watching François Cornue's video, I was reminded how much credit he deserves for the drive and determination that were necessary to get that first SIMUN up and running. By the time I took over, there had been several SIMUN conferences, and so for me it was more a matter of keeping the momentum going, which involved, for example, reaching out to as many schools as possible, trying to keep the right balance between international schools, Singaporean schools, and French schools in Asia, constantly trying to upgrade equipment and procedures to make sure that SIMUN was as enjoyable an experience as possible for the delegates, improving ways of selecting student officers, because they, of course, are the key to a successful conference, getting the MUN club organised and making sure that it was student-led. All of this was necessary to make SIMUN as successful a conference as possible, but also simply to ensure SIMUN's continued existence in what became over the years a more and more competitive environment, as the schools had an increasing number of conferences to choose from. I think the key moment came a few years ago when the conference moved to the new campus, the LFS's new campus, which ensured that SIMUN could take place in the very best conditions in terms of rooms and equipment. In Claire's video, she describes how MUN gave her so much more confidence and how it set her on an interesting and fulfilling career path. I think she sums up very eloquently everything that students can gain from MUN. Again, my role was to be a kind of facilitator, to make sure that all the participants got the maximum possible benefit out of attending SIMUN. It was a great source of satisfaction to me to see, for example, a shy, unsure first-time delegate grow over a few conferences into a confident and effective debater, or to see student officers develop the kind of leadership qualities which will be so useful to them throughout their lives. It was a privilege to work with so many talented and committed MUNers over the years, and I'm sure that SIMUN will continue to thrive under the capable leadership of Colin Daly. So, well, goodbye and all the best for the 15th SIMUN.
Dear students, dear teacher, I will unfortunately not be able this year to attend the SIMUN conference. But I wanted to share with you, few introductory remarks for this 15th edition of this annual event. The French Embassy strongly supports this initiative, which resonates with the commitment of France to multilateralism and rules-based order. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council, alongside the US, UK, China and Russia, France has promoted the United Nations system since its creation in 1945. We are convinced that only the UN has the legitimacy to speak in the name of the international community and take the necessary measures when circumstances warrant it. Within the United Nations, France is active in every field, not only in the political field, but also in human rights, environment and climate change, as well as development assistance. During 3 days, all of you, the French school students from the Asia-Pacific region, students from international schools and Singaporean schools, will participate in debates and discussion following the work methods of the United Nations. You will experience firsthand during this simulation that usually there is no obvious solution and that every productive dialogue requires preparation, procedures, conviction, and precise wording. This year's theme will be for the first time on human migration and refugees, a timely topic. To give you a concrete and recent example, an international agreement called the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration was adopted by 162 nations, including France, and endorsed by the United Nations in December 2018. France, which is committed to multilateralism, played an active part, putting forward its positions and having them incorporated into that text. That's exactly the type of negotiation skills that you will learn to develop during these 3 days. Judging from my own experience in multilateral fora, you should keep 3 things in mind when negotiating. First, listening carefully to the different parties to get a clear and comprehensive view of the issues at stake. Second, being aware of your own red lines that you cannot cross. And third, that you need to reach a sustainable and lasting deal. In multilateral negotiation, there is nothing like the winner-takes-all approach if you want to reach a sustainable compromise. At a time when the rule-based multilateral system is being challenged by some countries, it's more important than ever that you, the younger generation, get involved and take part in this kind of exercise. I am hopeful that at the end of the conference, you'll get to realize that cooperation, that multilateralism is the key to face the global challenges. So I wish all of you a very successful and very fruitful conference. Thank you very much.